So as mentioned, my name is Mojabeng Monyamane from the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Currently, I am honored to address you today as the coverage head for municipal sectors, wherein I'm responsible for financing as well as developing projects within core base of clients, which is our cities, water utilities, and increasingly supporting provincial as well as national projects. So we have been asked as the Development Bank of South Africa to share today a particular focus topic around the G20, how the G20 will impact us as a nation, our role in the G20, and then filtering through some of those expectations, those goals around the G20 to the municipal sectors, and then bringing it back, in essence, really to our core focus as a bank, which is to support the municipal sectors through financing as well as non-lending services. So in this slide, I know we only have 30 minutes. I'm going to try and capture as much as possible, and leaving enough time in particular for us to go through the last part of this presentation, which is case studies, and which will be more of a practical summation of the presentation, where initially we're going to be talking, in essence, policy, even to some extent theory, but in the case studies, we will then show and demonstrate how we've been working, with our core client base, and some of you as finance, risk, and audit colleagues in the public sector. Some of you are our core clients, and some of these structures may be familiar, and our clients may be in the audience. So in summary, we're going to share an overview of what was requested of us. For those who don't know what the DBSA is and how we support the municipal base, we will share that. High-level overview of G20, then really getting into the meat of the public sector focus that I caretake. And then lastly, as I said, case studies. So to begin, perhaps maybe let me start with the paper objectives. We have been asked to share, as I mentioned, an overview of G20, but then bringing it through to the core DBSA mandate around how do we continue to support a modernization of our infrastructure? How do we continue to support service delivery as a core function of the municipal as well as government sectors? We know the challenges in the municipal space. I'm not going to rehash them. The risks were also shared by the speaker that spoke before me. We're just going to highlight, some of those key factors, and then come up with suggested, implementation, practical implementation solutions. So the DBSA is a state-owned bank. We've been in existence for over 40 years, and important to add that we are the largest funder in the municipal base. We hold in excess of 60% of the debt in issue. We have a refreshed focus area on the sector. We are going to be looking at doing more to support our municipal clients, and through the cycle of infrastructure design, delivery and operation, and the same thing for urban services. So we've got a very healthy balance sheet, supported by a continued capital markets appreciation for the work that we do, and in particular municipalities being a core focus of that. So for those who have not encountered our capacity, our capabilities, as a bank we're able to walk through with our clients as they develop their municipal programs, their municipal financing, creating municipal financing opportunities, projects, as well as just a general support for the municipal business. We're able to come in very early to assist with planning. So we have a dedicated planning team consisting of statisticians, environmental skills, planners, engineers who are able to work with the municipal base around planning, around assessments, the setting up of PMOs and the like. Then very soon after the planning has been conceptualized, we're able then to help assist with packaging and preparing projects. Once projects are ready and bankable and receptive of financing, we then come up with tailored solutions that are responsive to the financing requirement, the financing gap, as well as the underlying infrastructure or service need. And where the DBSA differentiates itself from other development finance institutions, whether local or global, is where we provide, build, and maintain services. So we have an EPCM business. Many of you may be familiar with it. It's called the Infrastructure Delivery Division at the DBSA. This entity, as a division of the bank, works very closely with the public sector, in particular line ministries, to deploy their grants and support them through infrastructure design, construction management, project management, as well as delivery, and to a certain extent can also support the maintenance. As a bank, we are Pan-African, so many think of the DBSA as a municipal bank. Yes, we are proudly the largest supporter of the municipal space, but we also support projects on the continent. Ours is both a public as well as a private sector support for infrastructure and services. So the core sectors are shown above. So in essence, really, if you look at a municipality, this is really your core business. Every municipality would be providing energy, water and sanitation, transport and logistics, which includes roads, ICT, which is a focus of today, as well as, the other social classes. So what is G20? What is the fuss all about? How does this impact the country? What is the DBSA's role in it? So we know that the G20 is an economic cooperation forum. South Africa, proudly the only African country that is a member out of the 19 members. But there are 2 regional blocs, which is the EU as well as the AU, that are also members. And in this particular year, proudly South Africa is hosting the G20, an initiative that began at the end of last year that will flow through to November this year. So the G20, what are the opportunities and how does this impact the municipal space, the public space? In particular, this year's presidency is going to be focusing on solidarity, equality, and sustainability. So those are very wide themes, but bringing it closer, to the ground. South Africa, in its leadership of G20 this year, is going to be focusing on 3 themes. The first really being around economic growth as well as socially inclusive development. Food security also features as one of the task teams that South Africa will lead this year. And I know the speaker before me also had highlighted food security in her presentation. And then what is topical to, this engagement in particular under the theme of, accelerating and adopting technology, as finance, audit, and as risk professionals, is the use of ICT and in particular artificial intelligence. We know our sectors, the municipal sector and government in particular, can do more in terms of adoption of ICT. Also quite key, is the last pillar, which would be the 4th one, is where South Africa is leading an engagement around how can emerging markets and developing countries access finance that is affordable, finance that is sustainable. So that's G20 in summary. And actually, as we speak today, this week the DBSA is hosting G20 dignitaries within its office in Midrand. So this is the G20 for those, in summary. But then how do we then bring it then down to, the topic of the summit, these workshops? How do we then advance, digital public infrastructure? We know South Africa is one of the countries that has, a very high ICT penetration rate, in particular the use of mobile devices. But how are we leveraging, this penetration rate? How are we adopting new and changing technologies to ensure that, there's assist in the delivery of our services, the maintenance and the operations of our infrastructure. So very few of our programs and projects infrastructure-wise and services focused on ICT enablement. I mean, if you look at ICT, it can be used, for security services. ICT can be used for communication. ICT can be used for transacting, so as and when we interact with the client base. But how do we then widen the depth, of ICT as a tool? So the DBSA proudly, over the years, have supported various various municipal initiatives and specific ICT-led ones. In the past 7 to 8 years, having proudly supported the City of Tshwane's Thobela project, there was a Vodacom schools ICT Wi-Fi broadband initiative that included tablets when the DBSA worked with Vodacom and Basic Education in the Eastern Cape. There are other projects that are in the pipeline. We're working closely, in particular, with the Limpopo Economic Development Agency on their ICT rollout. There's also the City of Johannesburg's Metro Trading Company, which is their ICT wing, that has been, that will be through a build, operate, and transfer model, be ran by a private sector player over a 10-year concession. So these are some of the adoptions that we're seeing, but largely on metro level. But there is an opportunity, in particular, to increase and improve service delivery, as well as infrastructure operations and maintenance, unlocking through the leveraging of ICT. I'm not an ICT expert, but certainly I have financed various infrastructure projects, that cover ICT. So it's in this phase, really just encouraging the adoption of ICT. So internally as a bank, we're also working on a system as part of our organizational redesign that will be launched in the fullness of time. It's going to be specifically focused on the municipal sector, where our clients in the fullness of time will be able to access this tool, where we make applications easier, we make sharing of information, review processes more streamlined. So we would also like to start speaking to the municipal base via technology, to create efficiency. So that's what we're doing also internally as a bank. So colleagues, in essence, so there is a call to use this G20 platform, which also has an ICT focus, to see how we can advance not only dialogue around public digitalization, but also how, the G20 also comes with the ability to mobilize financing, and that's where the DBSA's core focus will be. How do we mobilize funding for mutual benefit of the G20 to support this public digitalization infrastructure agenda? How do we also then leverage IP, where municipalities outside of and the sub-sovereign space have started, to adopt technology as part of their processes. So how do we then tap into those resources, whether those are service providers, whether those are technology owners? So this is an opportunity to take stock of where we are from an ICT perspective, an enablement perspective, and take it further. So colleagues, we know that the municipal space government is facing various challenges. I'm not going to hone into them. The speaker before me went into much detail, but just to highlight in general, and that will give also more context on where the rest of the presentation goes. We know that grants allocations are shrinking. We know that the MTREF itself is often an inhibiting factor to acceleration of infrastructure, where grants are earned over a 3-year period. We know that municipal revenues are shrinking, so which means there's less internal generation of revenue. So the current financing model does not enable the infrastructure growth and delivery that we expect. We know the incapacity municipalities, we're not going to hone in on that. Many municipalities are unable, to provide basic services. And then last but not least, a discussion around operating models. As we operate and provide these services, is this the best way of rolling out services? And in particular, they, focusing on the energy business, focusing on the water and sanitation business, as well as waste. We know there are Metro's trading entities reforms that are underway, but how do we bring those principles down even onto onto a level of smaller municipalities, under-capacitated or under-resourced municipalities, and those in the rural space? So, we know the challenges, they are across the board. We have Metro's clients, that have deteriorated and are no longer borrowing. So some cities themselves unable to borrow, and we're supporting them from a non-lending perspective. So there are challenges, but they're not insurmountable. And with the colleagues in the room, this is where we can start, speaking about the necessary reforms, to change our sector. We all know about the white paper on local government. It is open for specific comments. The DBSA in particular working, with COCTA, NBI, so both public and private, and various other stakeholders to see how we can work around the key themes around the reforms, which is institutional, political, administrative, and financial. So in there, really seeing how we can reimagine, the municipal space. So we're contributing to this local paper and would like to also, at some stage, hear some of your comments, whether that's through the platform that has been provided. We know there's enabling infrastructure, not enabling, I beg your pardon, enabling legislation that's going to allow the DBSA, to lead, working with yourselves on some of the case studies and recommendations that we've shared. We know the National Treasury reforms. There's certain pieces of existing legislation in the Municipal Systems Act that will give birth and facilitate some of the solutions we're going to share. We've seen line ministries come in, to take control over dysfunctional municipalities. And then there are also policy directives around how do municipalities and local government leverage stronger and larger and better functioning public bodies, so public mandates, and then as well as crowding in the private sector. So what is the bank's response to the municipal space? So we adopt what we call our integrated municipal approach, wherein, in particular, my team has been tasked with working with the municipal base on new operating models as well as alternative financing solutions. So the DBSA has, created a specific focused approach to dealing with our clients. Many of you would know about the Partner District program. I'm not going to touch on that, but here I really wanted to talk about alternative financing and bringing through other focus areas and capabilities of the bank, whether that's in planning or preparation, the recently established Partnerships Office and IDD support. So in short, historically, we've always funded municipalities on balance sheet. Those risks that we identified, those challenges, are making it harder for municipalities to access, in particular, DBSA funding because of those shrinking balance sheets, because of incapacity. So we are moving into a space where we were working with the municipal base to come up with new models of operating new models of financing. And those look at how do we adequately use grants for those municipalities that are grant dependent. And we all know about front loading and pledging. DBSA has got 2 live cases where we're working with Gauteng government on a roads project. We're also working with the Northern Cape on a human settlements project. We know there's a lot, project financing is a tool where a municipality can enjoy the benefits of infrastructure and service, but not necessarily have to finance or operate it. I want to use an example where we're working currently with eThekwini on their water Triple P that has a reuse element. We're working in particular also with Mbombela to support their fresh produce market, also a Triple P. We're also working with the City of Johannesburg through DID to look at the Kopanong precinct, which is a Triple P. There are various, examples that one can use where we're rolling out Triple Ps. Also of interest is infrastructure bonds, so this is specifically where we try, not necessarily to ring fence financing, but to ring fence the use of proceeds, so where we can monitor construction milestones, we can look at ESG and development impact. So there's also a theme around how do we bring municipalities to access municipal bonds. We've also got a bulk solution that we could share at a later stage. We will share our contact details should you want to reach us outside of the space. So there's a lot happening, and yes, maybe as we look at these solutions, some of them may feel far-fetched. Yes, we're not all experts in the same field. Yourselves as finance, audit, and risk specialists can use, as you continue to use service providers, financial advisors, but equally you can reach the DBSA to see how you can take advantage of some of these solutions. Reaching an end, I know I only have about probably a minute or 2 left, but wanting to share high level, a few of those cases. So this is a classic project financing model. We're already deploying this model for 2 independent power producer programs. So this is a renewable energy project for the city of Ekurhuleni. There's a 10 megawatt project that is sitting in project preparation. We will be using this project financing solution for it. Also working with the city of Cape Town to support 2 projects of about 100 megawatts each, where Cape Town will then be looking to diversify itself like Ekurhuleni from Eskom power. This is a model that we are speaking to City Power on in particular, as well as the City of Johannesburg, where the distribution losses for that power utility, the intent is to see how we can use a ring-fenced vehicle to finance particular grid infrastructure. So this would be substations, transmission lines, and core electricity infrastructure through an SPV. The SPV would then use the benefit of savings from reducing those energy losses, and then use those savings to repay the DBSA. So this is an example. So very early stages, but it will have to wait for the trading entity reforms to come into place. But this could be used not just in energy; it could also apply to the water sector. We know about the high non-revenue water loss levels. The same thing for power distribution. So this is a great model, because what it does is it then doesn't tap into the municipality's existing budget. So this is where we would be able to come in, replace asbestos water pipes, where we would also be able to replace poorly functioning distribution cables and lines, and then come up with our own financing mechanism. We also then have grant pledging. I'm not going to go into that in detail because it is widely known, but then wanting to share in particular one or two private models. I just want to quickly come through to one of my favorite projects. Just one more minute, sir. We're working with Piet Retief, Piet Retief, in particular the Mkondo municipality in Gatsebande, in particular to use Section 78 of the Municipal Systems Act to look at a utility model. This is where the municipality has conceded that there isn't capacity to continue to provide water services due to growing demand. They're working with private sector. They went out on an open tender that was approved by council to build a new water utility that will be called Mkondo Water, that will then provide water to typical municipal clients, and then through an 8 to 12 year design, build and operate transfer model, the water team or the water directorate at the municipality will be upskilled, and manuals created, and then the private sector exits. Important to add that it is also intended that the municipality will have some profit share in this structure. So this is showing, like I'm saying, live case on the ground. This is a rural municipality. The MM and their team took the risk to take a structure of this nature to council. But I guess if you look at Mbombela, triple Ps are something that triple Ps and off-balance sheet solutions are something they've looked at before, because we have the Sululumanzi concession. But this is where a municipal manager, like I'm saying, and his team have taken a risk to say, let's do things differently. Let's not look at business usual. So this is a great one. It's a utility model. DWS is aware of this model, supportive, and we're going through the process of now moving into near implementation. We've just got one regulatory piece to meet. So that's Mkondo. And then I want to move into the public-public model. So again, this is an area where we're also very excited. This is where we're saying, how do municipalities use existing public entities that are performing to assist them where they have deficits? We're working with Rand Water and Mfuleni to set up a new water utility. It would likely be called Sedibeng Water because it's going to cover the entire Sedibeng region. Metsi Alekwa, as we all know, has had its own challenges. This entity will be disestablished, and then the creation of a new water utility will occur. DWS has appointed Rand Water as an implementing agent to bring this utility to operation, and Mfuleni will continue to have a stake in its own water infrastructure, even though it will be transferred into this new utility. And then we have private sector that's been invited to come in. So that 26% stake is an area where DBSA could play in, as well as private sector users. So colleagues, what we're sharing here is what is possible. We're talking about Mfuleni, yes, it's a city, but we've also showed you a case of a rural municipality where we're thinking outside of the box. And this is what we implore you to do when you think of solutions for your financing. Let those solutions be driven by the underlying asset, the underlying infrastructure need. So this continuous borrowing through CapEx programs, yes, we're all comfortable with that, but we need to move into an area now where we start engineering, and this is what this is. This is financial engineering, saying what resources do I have in place, how do I exploit them, how do I bring in DBSA, how do I bring in transaction advisors to ensure that we don't, as well as regulatory and legal advisors, to make sure that we work within the ambits of policy of regulation, but then we maximize these diminishing financing pools, that are grants, that are own cash flows, and that are also third-party borrowings. So thank you for your attention, and I hope it was useful. Thank you.